The echo of the key. The key felt heavier than it looked. Akito stood before the door of apartment 302, his entire life packed into 4 cardboard boxes stacked precariously at his feet. The hallway smelled of floor wax and old sunlight. Behind him, his parents' car had already turned the corner, leaving a silence he hadn't expected. He took a deep breath, turned the lock, and stepped into the first day of his own story. The apartment was smaller than his bedroom back home. It was a shell of white walls and bare linoleum that echoed every time he shifted a box. Akito sat on the floor, the vastness of his new independence feeling more like a weight than a wing. He realized then that freedom also meant being the only one responsible for filling the silence. Hunger was the first challenge. Akito had watched his mother cook 1,000 times, but as he stood over a single frying pan, the eggs stuck and the toast turned to charcoal. The smoke alarm let out a sharp chirp, mocking his efforts. He sighed, scraping the blackened bread into the bin. Adulthood, it seemed, was going to involve a lot of trial and error. A sharp knock at the door startled him. It was Kenji, a neighbor from down the hall who looked a few years older and wore a shirt stained with blue ink. Kenji held out a plastic container of extra rice. "The first night is always the hardest," Kenji said with a knowing smile. "Don't let the kitchen win." In that moment, the apartment felt a little less cold. Monday morning brought the sprawling chaos of the university campus. Akito stood at the base of the great library, a map clutched in his shaking hand. Thousands of students blurred past him, each appearing to know exactly where they were going. He felt like a single ink drop in a vast ocean, wondering if he would ever find his own current. He found a seat in the back of a lecture hall, but the words of the professor felt like a foreign language. During the break, a girl named Yuki tapped him on the shoulder. She pointed to his notebook, which was filled more with nervous doodles than notes. "The first lecture is always a blur," she whispered, sliding her neatly written notebook toward him. "Want to compare notes?" By the 3rd week, the adulting budget became a puzzle. Akito stood in the grocery aisle, comparing the price of instant noodles to a bag of apples. He had to choose between a new highlighter for class or a decent snack. He chose the apples, feeling a strange sense of pride as he calculated his remaining yen down to the last digit. Loneliness struck at twilight. Akito sat on his small balcony, the city lights twinkling like fallen stars. He dialed his home number, listening to the familiar ring. When his mother answered, his throat tightened. He didn't tell her about the burnt toast or the confusing lectures. He just said, "I'm doing okay, Mom. I'm figuring it out." Midterms arrived with a vengeance. Akito and Yuki spent 12 hours in the library, surrounded by towers of books and empty coffee cups. When the results were posted, Akito saw his name next to a passing grade. He high-fived Yuki, the sound echoing in the hallway. It wasn't just a grade. It was proof that he belonged here. Back at the apartment, Akito looked around. There were posters on the walls now, and a plant sitting on the windowsill. The air no longer smelled of floor wax, but of the tea he had just brewed. He realized that being an adult wasn't about having all the answers. It was about being brave enough to keep asking the questions. He turned his key in the lock, finally home.